How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at John Carpenter's Night Terrors. This is an anthology series, and this volume is Sour Candy. This story was written by Kealan Patrick Burk with art by Jason Felix, and the Night Terrors line was created by John Carpenter and Sandy King. Sandy King, founder of Storm King Comics, that put out this book. And this volume is about this guy. He has a really good life. He has a girlfriend that loves him, and in his work life, he's up for a promotion. He's really happy. But then one day he takes a trip to Walmart, and in Walmart, there's this lady, really strange and disheveled looking, with a little kid who seems to be dressed kind of old-timey. The old-timey kid starts to scream when he sees the main character, and he doesn't stop, and they're escorted out by security. Well, when he's driving home, the strange disheveled lady crashes into his car and will die on the highway. But the kid is missing. He looks in his wallet and sees a picture of the kid with him in his wallet, goes home, and the kid's living in his house. It turns out this strange and mysterious kid has rewritten the timeline so that our main character's now his father, and he's the only one that remembers it the other way. When him and the kid are alone, he's very strange. He's eating these sour candies, and that's the only thing he eats. The house is just full of them, and he's conducting some sort of strange ritual in the attic, and it gets very Lovecraftian. And overall, really good book. A creepy kid story that then becomes Lovecraftian terror. Very nice. Now, I suppose I should talk about how I found this book. I was just looking through the comic book section at my local bookstore, and I wanted to find something new and different. I'm always trying to find really good horror comics, and I was looking through all the books, and I saw the John Carpenter name. I'm a huge fan of Carpenter. Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, Big Trouble in Little China. I love most of his movies. Really good stuff. So when I saw the name, I had to check it out. Now that being said, and what a lot of you want to know, John Carpenter created the line in order to present new comics, but he didn't actually write or make the comics. He's just presenting them. Part of me wonders, back in the day, he had a pilot for a TV show, Body Bags, but unfortunately it didn't get picked up. But part of me wonders if Night Terrors is like the comic book version of what Body Bags could have been. But anyway, even though it's not Carpenter actually writing and he's just more essentially a producer, it's still a really good horror story. I really did like this, incorporating the people of Walmart thing into, characters in a horror story. This creepy little kid rewriting time, and just the red in this book, the sick, sweet red of those sour candies, the red of his crayons, the red of the otherworldly light. This does cosmic horror really well, and also, alternate timeline horror and creepy kid horror. Really good stuff. I guess I should mention, I talk about Tales from the Dark Side a lot on this channel, and some of my audience might pick this up too. I think it was actually the second episode of Dark Side was a very similar story to this. The episode, The New Man, a recovering alcoholic, comes home to find a kid that he doesn't remember having, and yeah, the base is a little similar, but I do want to say the story goes in a completely different direction. This drifts much more into Lovecraftian horror, so even though this has a similar base to the Tales from the Dark Side episode, The New Man, I do want to say it goes in a different direction, and I don't mind stories having a similar initial spark. I mean, slasher movies, shark movies, a lot of stories share similar sparks. So as long as it takes it in its own direction in the end, I'm fine with it. This really was a very engaging book. It really did pull me in, and I really did have fun with it. I read it really, really quick, and it was one of those comics that when you read it, it did really feel like you were watching a movie. In fact, I think this was actually up to be a movie before it became a comic. And I really did like it. It's also got really realistic art, which may not be for everybody. I know some people like more stylized art, but this is really realistic. I think they were using photographs or something and then manipulating them. We'll get more into that when we switch to the close-up camera, which I guess let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to switch to the close-up camera. I'm going to take a closer look at this release, a closer look at the story, and a closer look at the art. So if you guys want to dive in deeper, we're going to switch to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are in the castle taking a closer look at Sour Candy. We're going to look at this cover here. There's John Carpenter's Night Terrors, and I do love this logo. Really old-timey, you know, like 1980s lettering, and the nice little skull here is a pretty good touch. But then we get the Sour Candy at the bottom and the credits for this particular volume, and we get to see a house burning with our characters and the kid with some mysterious magical beings behind him. And I do like, we get a couple skulls on the spine as well. However, the Night Terrors title itself is a little too dark. But anyway, we flip it to the back. We get some highlights from the comics art and a bit of a plot summary. And then down at the bottom, I found this was kind of interesting. Mature readers, and then below that, February 2022. It kind of odd that they list the date as specific as the month on the back cover. I don't know why that's super important information, but hey, that's kind of cool. Storm King's logo and $17.99 as the MSRP, which for a trade paperback is a little bit on the steeper side. It's not too bad, but yeah, $17.99, a little steep, but not terrible. Anyway, if we flip it open, Night Terrors logo, series created by John Carpenter and Sandy King, and then flip it to the next page, and there's our overall credits, written by Kealan Patrick Burk and art by Jason Felix. And then Kealan Patrick Burk gave us this really nice foreword, which I don't think books do enough. You know, we get presented the book, and we don't really know too much about where it came from or what happened to get it to us. So I always like when there's a little bit of a prologue kind of explaining, you know, the process of the story, which I thought was nice. But he talks about, you know, he grew up in Ireland and he'd watch horror movies with his mom on TV. And he talks about Carpenter as well, you know, how his favorite is The Thing, but the one that really scared him was, as a kid, was The Fog, because he grew up in an actual harbor town with a bunch of fog. But the most relevant to this story would be In the Mouth of Madness, which he said is the best film for that kind of Lovecraftian, otherworldly horror. But then it talks about Sour Candy. He said the original version of Sour Candy was a novella that he was hoping to turn into a movie, and he was talking with the producer, and he says it sounded like it almost got made, but then eventually the producer lost interest, which is pretty sad. But he was super happy to give it to Carpenter producing this comic, you know, because, you know, of how much he influenced him as a kid. And it talks about Jason Felix, who would do concept art for Dead Space, so he was really glad to have him along to do the art. And yeah, this really does kind of have a movie-like feel behind it, so to know that at one point it was almost a movie is really interesting as well, you know. So anyway, after that we get the story proper, and when we dive into the story, I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers. I'll try to avoid talking about too much of the end, so no major spoilers, but I do want to show you guys a little bit of the story, make sure you know what it's about, and also cover some of that really, really interesting artwork. I don't know, part of me really likes it, and then let's talk about the artwork before the story, actually. So, we get the artwork, and you get scenes like when he goes into Walmart that really do look like photographs of, like, say, an actual Walmart and actual people, you know, like these three standing around look like they could have been, you know, digitally altered photographs. But then you get, you know, especially with the otherworldly stuff, where it does seem to get more painterly. So I'm thinking that this must be photographs that they turned into Photoshop paintings, but I'm not 100% sure on the process. They do give you in the back of the book the art of section, which, I mean, it's always cool to see some behind the scenes. But that being said, it's very, you remember that meme, Rest of the Owl? Yeah, they just kind of show a sketch and then transition it to the final page, and I'm like, cool to see the beginning sketches here, but at the same time, how did this happen, you know? So I'm thinking it is photographs turned into digital paintings, but I'm not 100% sure. That being said, for the most part, it looks pretty good, and, you know, like I said, the series has a movie-like feel to it, and it does have a bit of a painting overlay, so, again, for the most part, it's pretty good, but I think the worst is this, really bad cigarette here, you know, it seems to get smaller between panels, and it's clearly on top of his face and not in his mouth, so every now and then you get a bad panel, but for the most part the art is pretty good. Now let's get back into that story. We open up with a flash forward. This guy's in front of his sink, and he just lost all his teeth. And it says that this happens 4 months after he met the mysterious kid at Walmart. Well, what happened there? What led him to this craziness? Well, we jump back in time. He's getting out of bed with his girlfriend, which, YouTube, it is covered enough. Don't flip out, YouTube. But anyway, he's getting out of bed with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend says, go to Walmart and pick up some candy. One of the kind of baffling things with this story is it's not set around Halloween. As much as it talks about candy, why can't we just set it in Halloween time? But anyway, his girlfriend wants candy for whatever reason. I guess she's got a sweet tooth. And all of a sudden he hears this screech, and it's this kid that's just turned and started yelling at him. And eventually security will come and try to get him to go away, and the kid rips open a bag of these sour candies, and we see the mom there, and she really does seem out of it, you know, so we don't really know what's up with her. But before they get escorted out, the kid gives our main character a sour candy, kind of a sign that he's chosen him. But we get him later talking about how weird that was, when all of a sudden a car speeds up behind him and crashes into him. And of course, it's going to be that woman from earlier. She's crashed into his car, and she's all covered with blood now. But she is going to drop him a bunch of these candies and then walk off into oncoming traffic and get splattered. And I do like, you know, like that, you know, she wanders into oncoming traffic. And just as a nice little detail, we get the random guy that was driving the car getting all upset that he ran someone over. We don't ever see that character again, but that is what would happen. But anyway, dies with the sour candies there. The police come to talk to him, you know, see what happened, and they give him his wallet, and they say, is this the kid that you were just describing to us? And he goes, what? That's crazy. Why would he be in my wallet? Is this all some kind of joke? And as they're driving him home, we see that he's in a bunch of pictures in his wallet. There's a whole life with this kid that he doesn't remember. And he's like, is he actually going to be at my house? And of course he is. And the lead cop will start talking about, how he has a daughter and things aren't going great, and, sometimes maybe you want a disconnect. And he's like, what are you talking about? And the cop explains this story about how the mother died in a fire in the hospital, but the baby was okay because she rejected the baby, and it was in another room. And then him and his wife, who he doesn't know this lady and doesn't know who he married, well, the wife killed herself and left him alone with this baby they adopted. And I do like, the guy goes, what the heck, how do you know this whole story? And it never really is brought up or addressed later. I'm guessing the kid dumped this whole story in the cop's head or something. But they basically say, if you don't remember him, you were just in a car wreck. You got hit in the head. That's what happened. It's your kid, and they leave him there. And then he tries to call his girlfriend, and it turns out, in this version of reality, they dated for a bit after his wife died, but it didn't work out. Just leave me alone. It's been 6 months. Stop calling. So his nice girlfriend is gone now. So yeah, his world is wrecked. His girlfriend's not with him anymore, and he's left alone in this house with this kid that he doesn't have any memories of. But of course things will get strange. He opens up the cabinet, and it's full of no real food, just this sour candy. And, he draws and screams, and, candy spills out of the oven. But he says, here, take a piece of sour candy. And when he does that, he has this horrible trip where he sees this weird ritual and a bunch of these cloaked figures with horns, and in the background it looks like, two Cthulhu's fighting or something, or Cthulhu and one of the other ones, I don't know. But after he comes down from that bad trip, the kid shows him a photo of them on a river of blood, which is pretty nuts. And on top of all that, the kid is staying in the attic, and he's got all these mysterious symbols going on the roof of the attic. So yeah, the kid's up to something, and he's becoming more and more disheveled as his life goes crazy. But how can he stop the kid from literally raising hell there? So I really do like it. A creepy kid story that turns into a Lovecraftian story that's sickly red from the candy and then the crayons and then the lights, and there are some pretty cool sequences later on, and I do like the horror of an alternate timeline, and I think they probably, used the movie script or something instead of the original prose story. I can't confirm, but it really did feel like I was watching a movie, and I thought it was really fun. So yeah, I definitely would recommend it. It's like a horror movie you hadn't seen yet, and I would really be glad if this did get adapted. But yeah, really cool Lovecraftian style horror comic, and I definitely want to try to find the other Night Terrors books now. But I thought it was pretty fun. If you guys have read this, let me know. Did you guys like the artwork, or did you think it was not comic booky enough? I'd be curious to see what you guys think of that as well. Personally, I didn't mind most of the panels came out, but yeah, every now and then there was a weird one. But overall, I thought it was pretty cool. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. I'll actually put my John Carpenter comics playlist here. I've covered quite a few of his comics. I covered the original Big Trouble in Little China run. I covered the first Escape from New York comic that I think Boom did. And I also did the prequel comic to The Fog that came out before the remake. So I have a few Carpenter comics in there. If you guys want to see more, you can click there and see more. Anyway, Have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.